Welcome to a safe space between friends, where we get real about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. My name is Nikki, and this is Myra.
What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. On this episode of A Safe Space Between Friends, we're going to be discussing the word and actually the complete sentence no. Why is no so hard? Why is no so important? And how do we even maintain our own no's? Myra, if you don't mind leading us off in our scripture and our definition for today, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. Matthew chapter 5, verse 37 in the NIV version of the Bible, it says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond comes from evil. The definition, according to Oxford's, is it describes the word no as the not any or not at all. Not any or not at all. Your no should be no and your yes should be yes. Right, Nikki?
Yes, ma'am. Um, so if we're taking that scripture into context, right? So if we go back and we look into Matthew, this is after like John the Baptist come make paved the way, right? This is as the Lord's like trying to prepare the disciples. And when we're looking at this yes means yes, no means no, the Lord is literally telling us, hang on, where'd it go? Ah. Anyway, he was literally talking about like not swearing on him, like not saying, I swear to God, or I put my hand on the word, or he's
Mhm.
like, just mean what you say and stand in it, as people are saying nowadays, right? So
Right.
it's mean what you say what you mean, and just let your yes stand on it and let your no stand on itself too. Anyway,
Right.
so I just thought that was really important context because it really sets the foundation for what we're actually even talking about today.
Mhm, mhm. I also found this too on as far as context. I want to share it real quickly. It said Jesus is criticizing the hypocrites who abuse religious teachings. Jesus is against hypocrisy in all forms. Jesus is teaching that a simple yes or no is sufficient. Jesus is teaching that people should be known for stating the truth.
Exactly.
Stating the truth. That is really, really good. It's like when someone asks you if you want to do something or participate, and you're like, yeah, sure, but you really want to say no, which is true, right?
Yes.
No is the truth, but you're scared or afraid to speak it for some reason. So go ahead. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but go ahead, Nikki.
No, you're not. You're leading us straight into what we're talking about, and what you were just talking. Go backwards just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hang on, I lost it, Myra. It'll come back around, listeners. I do that. It's a carousel.
Yes.
I don't forget anything, unfortunately. Um, but going back to like your no meaning no and your yes meaning yes, your word meaning something, right? That it having you standing in truth. That rings a lot to where we are today because
Mhm.
there's so much information and we've got to discern what's the truth and what's not the truth. And to me, it's just so sad and infuriating when people are either digesting misinformation or not understanding the truth or not doing their own due diligence to seek the truth, whatever the case may be, if you're living in some untruth, right? That's what I got to say no to, Myra. That's just inauthentic to me,
Mhm.
which is uncomfortable.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself for sure. Um, why is no so hard, Myra?
Well, I wanted to ask you a question too, like
Okay.
in relationship to that. I'll say this: growing up, the way that I grew up, you really weren't allowed to say no.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
you and you kind of raise that way. You don't say no. You're always nice, and you don't say no. You always try to help people. You don't hurt people's feelings. Um, you should worry about what people think about you. That type of thing. Don't be
Right.
confrontational. just go with the flow, just to keep the peace. And no, most times creates some type of confrontation, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
anger, disappointment, disagreement when you speak that. But growing up, I wasn't really, I don't feel like I was really given permission to say no. I mean, just think about it. When I was a kid, your parent told you to do something, you're like, no, you got your butt whooped. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was no conversation.
Yeah, it
So
wasn't. Yeah.
say no in that way, and you're raised that way, it's like a bad word, if you will. You don't say no, you just do what you're told to do or asked to do, no matter what. Even if you don't know how to do it, figure it out.
Right.
So I think it's hard because it may have been a part of how we've grown up, and it was considered rude and
Disrespectful.
not nice. You're not being nice. No is not a
Hmm.
nice word. And not being taught that it was okay.
So, like those social expectations where
Absolutely.
were placed on you at a young
Yeah.
age is what I hear you saying.
And I think
Uh,
no is also hard because you don't want to be rejected by anyone. So if somebody asks me to do something and I say no, they might not like me. So I'm gonna say yes.
so, like some
So,
peer pressure too.
yeah. And people
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna say too. And then you've got the aspect because you're right. There's all these dynamics, right? Then you've got the dynamic of the people pleasing,
Hmm.
which goes directly against when I was reading that Matthew 5:37. Although that
Hmm.
goes directly against what against people pleasing. Like there's no room. That's what I sent you in that text. Like there's literally no room for people pleasing there in the scripture.
Correct.
You got to stand on your yes and your no. And how freeing is that? Like, I don't have to give an explanation. It's just yes or no,
Hmm.
do or don't.
Hmm.
um, yeah. So, but I think you're right. I think we have to look at the generational norms for how we developed a relationship with the word no. Right. That's what I hear you saying is that we have um, these traditions around the word, if you
Hmm.
will. Um, or maladaptive patterns even. For myself, I don't think that the word no was ever hard for me to say. It's always hard because it's not that I'm oppositional. I'm just a natural conflict. People, I come off as oppositional, but I'm just a natural person that, like, just my critical thinking. I automatically, if you say up, I'm like, but what happened to down? On my brain just automatically is like, but you're taking away one of my options. Or if you were to say left, I'm like, well, what about right? You know what I mean? Like you're automatically making me just, so I've never been one to naturally conform. I'm always like one that's like, but why? I got to know, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Um, so for me, no has always come natural to say, but those social pressures that you're talking about have always been there, in different aspects of my life. Like there's certain people like you can just say no to, and certain people you can't. Like my little sister, I wish she would. One of my younger siblings, my little brother, even I wish they would come at me. No, no, 100 times a day. Me and my little mare bear 100 times a day. Who's saying no the most, right? But when it comes to like people you have contracts with, from a business standpoint, right? You want to try to go above and beyond that contract, or someone that may be in need, in dire need, whether you can help them or not. You
Hmm.
may still want to try to go above and beyond, and it may not. No may be hard, is what I'm saying, for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. I guess
Correct.
is the point that I'm trying to make.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but allowing ourselves, I think, giving ourselves the permission, going right back to what you keep saying. I love that you keep saying that, giving myself permission, giving ourselves permission to say no and
Hmm.
sticking to that, and not just to other people, but to ourselves.
Hmm.
Right. Nikki used to be known, Big Daddy used to always say, Nikki, you love to overload that donkey. Can I have this project and that project? And he's right. And I'd be crushing every single one of them. But then I'd be wondering why I didn't have no time, no energy, you know, because I didn't say no. I was always obligating myself, in whatever resource or whatever thing I could obligate to.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah,
interesting.
true.
Yeah.
What does he say? You always what? Overload that.
Overload my donkey. So you always overloading that donkey, aren't you?
Oh, I love that. I love,
Oh, he
you know,
wasn't wrong.
yeah, yeah.
He
And
was
sometimes,
very seldom wrong. He had a way of putting things, but he was very seldom wrong.
right. And I think too, a couple of things about saying no when we really need to say no, is that we can set ourselves up for failure
Yes.
or disappointing someone that we care about, or even like letting our kids down, instead of being honest about, well, no, we can't do that right now because I don't have the money, or because it's just not the right time, or because you can do that when you get older, whatever the reason, or
Right.
saying, your children invite you to things, and if you have more than one, and you are solo parenting, or if you one parent is not available for work or
Exactly.
whatever, and you kind of got to do it all and juggle it all. Sometimes you
It's a
have to.
lot.
It is a lot. You have to say no to one or the other child, and when you say yes to everybody, somebody's going to be disappointed because you can't do it all.
Right.
And you saying no and prioritizing with the kids will just alleviate the times that I believe it'll alleviate the number of times that they're disappointed, because you don't want to do that. They're not saying that they're not going to be disappointed if you say no, but they'll be more disappointed if you say yes and you don't show.
Correct. I mean,
You
you're like you said, setting people up for failure.
correct.
Um, that's going back to that. But I think that you also hit on another little point that kind of resonated with me as a parent and a solo parent. When you brought up just saying no in general, it to me saying no to our children is so healthy. I
Mhm.
cannot. When I was working with as a clinician, when I was working with families full time, I remember telling some of the hardest things for them were, especially when we were merging families back together, like reuniting, was
Mhm.
the guilt and that kind of stuff that comes along, because saying no has this negative connotation to it. But no is healthy. Like, no, you're not going to eat that because that's unhealthy for you. Or no, you're not going to play in the street. Whatever I had to tell my 3-year-old, no, you're not going to jump off the back of the couch like you're
Yeah,
Superman today. Like, no, we're not doing these things. Um,
right.
no is healthy. No is safe.
It is.
Um,
It is.
and we don't have to give an explanation. We can just say no, thank you, like we do to the toddlers, and keep it moving.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. Um, and no can also alleviate burnout.
yes.
I used to try to take on every client that called, no matter what. I don't care what your problem is. Myra can solve it.
I'm gonna save the world.
Whatever it is, I got it. And I
Oh,
found myself, number one, not really knowing what I was talking about because I didn't have the experience in what they needed. And two, I was up to like 25 clients a week. And that about made me quit doing the work,
yes, ma'am. I know it did.
because I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to disappoint anyone. Well, let me see if I can just squeeze somebody in, or I don't want to make them wait a month. If I make them wait a month, they may not come back. Fear of losing out on some money or something. And no,
Yeah.
it's okay. There are 100,000 other therapists out there. They can help.
Yes.
You don't have to save the world, Myra. It's okay to say, no, I'm not available. And just leave it at that. You don't have to explain, so
Exactly. And sometimes our no's are important in that person's journey. Like
true.
sometimes our no's,
So good, Nikki. Yes.
Think about like enablers.
Yes.
Sometimes not withholding our nose, I guess is what I'm trying to say, can really debilitate someone else in their recovery process and their healing process and their self-discovery, whatever it is. If you're, constantly, um, you're just, we come from the field of working in substance abuse, right? So I think about all the enablers that were always attached, those codependent enablers that were attached to the alcoholics and to the addicts, and
Mhm.
it's like to the substance abusers. And it's like it's hard. We understand where they come from. You can
Right.
understand why they're hurting. You can understand why they want to be numb. It could be physical pain they need to be numb from. But at the same time, you've got to love them enough to tell them that how they're doing it, isn't healthy. And sometimes saying no, I'm not giving you money for that, or no, I'm not going to watch your kids so you can go use, or no, I'm not going to lie for you, or no, I'm not going to give you this urine, or no, I'm not going to, whatever the case may be. Sorry. Flowing with real life experiences there, I suppose.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
Though. Yeah.
Never a dull moment in substance abuse recovery, man.
Mm-mm. And
So,
so, uh, say what now? I'm sorry, it
some
froze.
walking miracles can happen throughout that process, though.
True. Very true.
When you see a family, and you've worked inpatient, Myra. Think
Hmm.
about those moments where you had those interventions. Like I remember, like a lot of my inpatient stuff. A lot of the interventions that would take place right there, where you've got a break-in moment where a person's like saying, "No, I can't take this drug anymore. I've got to say yes to my family." Like that's a
Hmm.
big moment.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
having that loved one say, "No, I can't come. I can't make your bond today." Because I'm afraid you're gonna hurt yourself this evening,
yeah. Oof.
you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. My mother
Those are
always,
important no's, though, is the point that I'm saying. They're crucial
absolutely,
no's.
absolutely. And being a recovering people pleaser, um, there's so you mentioned it earlier. There's so much freedom.
Mhm.
Saying no and not having to explain it. Period.
Yeah.
No. Period. I'm
Look,
not.
and as an introvert, I bet we could ask your daughter the same thing. As an introvert, when someone tells me no, I'm like, "Yes." Like, secretly, I'm like,
Right.
"I wanted to go have lunch with her, but it's totally fine that it's not today."
Exactly. Yes. That sets us free too, doesn't it? Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Um, yeah. Um, what do you find it, or who do you find it hardest to say no to?
Mm. Um, that really depends on the circumstance. Because I'm that practicing no has kept me safe, the last few years. So like it's something I've been like diligently working through. So
Hmm.
it's like in my own life. So it's like um I'd have to say my kids, honestly, if I'm being fair in my overall world, because I just want to always be able to have yes days, because we have yes days too.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so I want to be able to, those yes days are just magical, but they're not realistic,
Hmm.
right? So as a mom, I try to always balance, is this a battle that's going to make or break if I say no? Like, does this no matter? I guess.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? Like, am I just saying no because, like, why am I saying no? Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
It does.
Is it a safety issue? Then I'll go down the priority list. Is it a safety issue? Am I just agitated and don't want to hear all that? Like, do I not want to clean up the third mess for today? You know, it's
Right.
just a matter of, I want my no's to matter to them, but I also want them to know how to handle no's. Because,
Mhm.
like you mentioned, no's are real and life's going to tell us no. And we're
Yeah.
going to have to know how to handle those no's as adults. And
Yes.
it's my job as
Yes.
their mom
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they can, one, accept the no, and
Mm-hmm.
then one, respond to it,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
or
Yep.
respect
Yep.
it.
Respect it. And
Mhm.
teaching them that it's okay to say no.
Well, and
That's,
I think for parents, that's the hard part, Myra. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's hard to look at a 3-year-old when that you're teaching to go potty, right? It's hard to have them tell you no, but in order for them to be able to learn how,
mhm,
they've got to practice on someone, right? So there's times that I'll be like, "Well, you saw me," and then that one night in the middle of the night when she woke up needing to go.
mhm,
You have to give children a sense of a ways to fill their control cup too,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So especially when a toddler is doing a lot of no, 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 back and forth, just power struggles, I'll be like, "Oh, you told me no. I need to hear that no." Or I'll try to model whatever behavior I expect from her, if that makes sense. Now,
mhm.
that's hard to do when you're tired as a mom and you just want to be like, "No, because I said no." you know, and that's the easiest way to do it. Um, but at the same time, sometimes learning how to say no is a process. And if we want the kids to know how to say no, we need to teach them how to accept it as well, I guess.
Absolutely. And I say that because in saying no and teaching them that and giving them permission to do so can save them from inappropriate touch, uh, tempted by drugs, alcohol, sex before they're married, before they're
All of it.
ready, all of those things. Because when you don't know how to say no and understand that it's a complete sentence, a lot of really bad things can happen. I was playing with my granddaughter, and I guess I maybe tickled her wrong or something, and she was like,
Mhm.
"No, Gigi, that doesn't feel good."
Oh, good.
I was so
Good
happy.
job using your words.
No, she said, "No, Gigi, that doesn't feel good." And I was like, "Okay, okay, yes, she can stand up for herself and say it, and not be
And that's
afraid to make
yes.
Gigi mad or to disappoint Gigi. No, that doesn't feel good." So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And that's exactly what we wanna nurture,
Mm,
right? Instead of teach out, we wanna nurture that.
mhm.
But for those of us that have been taught saying no or back talking, right? Um,
That part, yes,
girl, look, in our household, we can back talk with our eyes. Um,
yeah.
or smacking our lips. I was really bad about that, smacking my lips. I didn't have to say anything. Like I just did it just anyway. Um, the fact that she felt, like you said, comfortable. She, one, listened to her body, but then she also communicated what she was experiencing. That's a whole bunch of awesome right there, like
Mhm,
all wrapped up into one.
mhm.
That's the kind of stuff we need to nurture for sure. And someone's doing a phenomenal job teaching her and giving her the space to be able to communicate that. Because you're right, when she gets into a position later down the line. Not saying it's even a bad person, but it's just another inexperienced person, right? Like at middle schoolers or high schoolers, they're
Correct.
just inexperienced and immature, people to these life experiences. And she's gonna be able to be the one to say no and walk off, even if it is uncomfortable.
Right.
Um,
Right.
she'll have that upper hand. That is so important.
It is. And I didn't take it as disrespectful or I didn't just keep doing it. No,
Yeah.
when she said no, Gigi, I heard the no first.
And your response to her, okay, wow, thank you, Lord, for that. So your response to her, Also did another level for her, and the consistency in that will throughout all of you loved ones doing that for her,
Mhm.
will also allow her over time that when someone doesn't respect that boundary, that's going to come off weird to her, and she's
Right,
going to be like, no, people
right,
respect my no.
right,
Like,
exactly.
why are you? Yeah, that's going to be more affirming that she needs to get somewhere. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like she needs to separate herself.
right.
Oh, I love that for her.
Yeah, so excited. I was like, okay. I said, thank you for telling me. You know, because I was just thinking, what was my thought? I hate when I lose my thought. Um, I don't know. Anyway,
It'll come back on the carousel.
it'll come back once we sign off. It'll come back. But this was a great topic today. I really enjoyed it because it took me so long, as far as my age, to get comfortable with it, to know it was okay, to know that I had the right to say it and mean it and not
Mhm.
explain it. That was always the hard part for me. I could
Yep.
say no, but then I felt like I needed to tell you why I was saying no. And you don't have to do that. I think that
Well, and I feel like when we
well,
sorry, I feel like I didn't mean to overspeak you again.
I said I feel like people need to hear that part as well. That no is no, and you don't have to explain it. No is a complete sentence, and you don't have to explain it. It just
It
is what it is. Yeah.
exactly, and the moment we start even explaining it in certain circumstances, then you start trying to justify, "Well, do I need to say no?"
Right.
Um, and so it's just easier to just be like, "No, thank you." That's why I titled it this. Just like we do them toddlers. If your gut instinct is to say no, no, thank you, and move on. If you are sure, like really unsure, you can always say it's a no for right now, but I'll get back to you if that changes.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think you're right, Myra. I think it comes back to trying to figure out why do we feel guilty when we say no, and then just kind of shedding that. And it's probably some distorted view that we've carried along, like you said, or some value that was instilled in us that doesn't really just fit the current time, right?
Yep.
It worked in a time that it worked in, but it's not working in today's time.
Right.
And saying no is healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 Well, I
And
hate
if
to.
you don't know, saying no is still healthy.
It is if you don't know.
If you are not certain, by God, stand on that no. That's what I do.
I'm gonna say this real quick because we got like 3 minutes.
Yes,
I
so we both have
I
3 minutes.
I remember getting a call once, and the person knows me. We have a relationship, but they were referring someone else, and they're like, so, and I'm close to this person. They're like, so do you work with schizophrenics? So and so is a schizophrenic, and I want her to come to you because I trust you. Blah blah blah. And I remember thinking, this is gonna be so hard, but I gotta say no because I
Mhm.
don't. And this is their mental health we're talking about, and I
Right,
can't just say yes to be sweet.
right,
A no is going to benefit them. A no for me is going to benefit them in the long run. Even
right.
though it was difficult, it was necessary.
Exactly. And at that point, and it was ethical,
Yep,
you know.
yep,
If
for
you're looking from
sure.
a professional standpoint, because you had other stuff that you was juggling that you really probably didn't have the time to take on a high risk client anyway, you
Right.
know.
Nor the desire.
Nor- Ah.
So, all right, people. I guess that's it.
Well, thank you for your time today, listeners. And as always, if you have any any questions or any requests or any comments,
Mhm.
our email address is asafespacebetweenfriends at gmail.com. And remember, if you need a safe space, 988 is accessible 24/7, 365 via text and call.
Oh, you do that so well.
I don't know about all that there, but
Yeah, thank you.
until next week, friends.
Always skip my mind. Oh my goodness. All right.
Until next time, be a safe space for someone else.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day, people. Bye.
Thank you.